The text came at exactly 10:03 p.m., lighting up my phone while I was sitting alone on the couch, the TV humming with a show I wasn't really watching. Car broke down near my ex's. I'm sleeping there. I read it twice, then a third time, waiting for some follow-up that never came. No apology, no explanation, just a statement, like it was the most natural thing in the world. My first instinct was to call her, but I stopped myself. Instead, I typed back, "Don't hurry. Be safe." The words looked calm, even kind. Inside, something cracked quietly. We had been married for 7 years, long enough to know each other's habits, long enough to sense when something was off. For months, she had been distant in small ways that were easy to ignore if you wanted to. Late nights at work, phone always face down, smiles that didn't quite reach her eyes. I told myself every marriage goes through phases, that love isn't always loud. But that text didn't feel like a phase, it felt like a door closing. I remembered her ex well enough. He wasn't just a name from the past, he was a shadow that occasionally drifted into our conversations, usually after a glass of wine. She would say she was over him, that what we had was real and solid. I believed her because believing was easier than doubting. Now she was sleeping under his roof, and I was sitting in our living room, pretending to be understanding. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, replaying the text over and over, imagining scenarios I didn't want to imagine. I wondered if her car really broke down, or if that was just the simplest lie. I wondered how long she had been planning this, and how long I had been blind. When morning came, there was no good morning message, no update, just silence. She came home the next afternoon, cheerful in a way that felt forced. She kissed my cheek like everything was normal and started talking about traffic, about how inconvenient the breakdown had been. I listened, nodding, letting her words wash over me. When I asked why she hadn't called me for help, she shrugged and said it was late, that she didn't want to bother me. The irony of that nearly made me laugh. Over the next few weeks, I became an observer in my own marriage. I watched her more closely, not with anger at first, but with a quiet need to understand. She texted more, smiled at her phone more. She guarded it like it was a part of her body. When I asked if everything was okay between us, she said yes too quickly. I started connecting dots I had ignored for too long. One evening, she fell asleep on the couch with her phone buzzing softly beside her. I sat there for a long time, debating with myself. I hated the idea of invading her privacy, hated what it would say about me. But I hated not knowing more. When I finally picked up the phone, my hands were shaking. The messages weren't subtle. They weren't even careful. They were intimate, familiar, full of a history that hadn't ended when she said it had. I didn't confront her right away. Something in me needed time to absorb the truth, to grieve the marriage I thought I had. I went to work, smiled at colleagues, came home and made dinner like a man playing a role in his own life. At night, I lay next to her and felt the distance like a physical thing. The words "don't hurry" echoed in my head, bitter now. I realized I had given her permission to choose someone else. When I finally spoke, it was quiet. I told her I knew. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't accuse. I just said I knew she was still involved with him, that the night her car broke down was not an accident. She cried, of course. She said it wasn't planned, that it just happened, that she was confused. She said she loved me but wasn't sure if she was still in love with me. That distinction felt like a knife. I asked her if she would end it, truly end it. She hesitated, just for a second, but it was enough. In that pause, I understood everything I needed to know. I realized that staying would mean constantly wondering, constantly checking, constantly shrinking myself to fit into a marriage that no longer chose me fully. The divorce wasn't dramatic. It was sad and slow and exhausting. We divided our lives into boxes and paperwork and awkward conversations. Friends chose sides or stayed neutral in uncomfortable ways. Nights were the hardest, the silence louder than any argument we ever had. But with the sadness came a strange sense of relief. I no longer had to pretend I was okay with things that hurt me. Sometimes I think back to that text message and how calmly I responded. I don't regret it. It showed me who I was in that moment, someone who loved enough to be kind even when it cost him. It also showed me who I needed to become, someone who wouldn't ignore his own worth. The marriage ended, but I didn't. And slowly, in the quiet after everything fell apart, I began to feel whole again.